Assalamualaikum Asep. Ini video tutorial untuk pengantar maksud dan tujuan dari penanaman kode trackingnya. Nanti ada video kedua, di situ juga dia hanya menjelaskan maksud tujuan dari penanaman kode-kodenya itu di mana. Tapi dia nggak mempraktekkan, tapi dia menjelaskan tentang instruksi dari penanaman kode itu tadi. Mungkin itu aja dari saya. Nanti kalau ada waktu besok atau lusa kita bisa bahas. Assalamualaikum.
So in this video, I actually want to show you how you can set up enhanced conversions through Google Tag Manager, also known as GTM. And before you can actually set this up, you need the first-party data to be accessible within your data layers. So this is where the help of your developer comes in. This can be a developer at your client side or maybe a developer within your own organization, but you need the help of a developer in order to make the first-party data that gets sent over in one of the forms or on a checkout success page to make that accessible for you as a Google Ads specialist, since you will need this data and you will need these variables in order to configure your Google Tag Manager tags. And I will show you how you can do this in a later part of this video. So what I have done, I've created a email template that you can basically use as a template to send over the briefing to one of your developers. So what you want to do here is basically tell your developer on what page, on what certain event, this can be a purchase event, this can be a lead form submit event, a form submission event, on what kind of event a data layer has to be pushed, or if there is already a data layer event in place, which data layer event has to be enhanced with the user provided data, like an email address or a phone number. So it's up to you to figure out if there is already a event in place, like a purchase event or a form submission event. If so, please highlight it over here. You can replace the yellow part. And if there isn't yet a event in place, then make sure to instruct this to your developer. Well, then you want to make sure that the developer is sending over the user provided data, the first party data that gets logged by your clients, inside of the actual data layer. And I would suggest to always use the email address of the client. This is basically mandatory in order to use enhanced conversions. And if possible, please enhance this with a phone number or even an address as well. I usually stick to just the email address and the phone number, since these data points are, well, more than enough most of the times. So once the developer has put these data layer variables in place, then you can actually head over to Google Tag Manager and see if you're able to see these data layer variables. So I've done this for my own site, bobmeijer.nl/en, to actually give you an example of how this can actually look inside of GTM. So let's head over to Google Tag Manager. So in the first place, I want to show you how you can debug and see if the user provided details, like the email address and the name and the phone number, is actually being sent over and accessible for you. So let's create a debugger view first. So let's head over to my personal website and connect the debugger. Then make sure that it is connected. It is connected over here and also connected inside of the debugger. Now let's enter the details within the form. This is a test, and send over the actual form. So now, since my form is being sent, a event is being pushed, and we can check this within the debugger within GTM. So over here, when I had submitted my form, actually a event called form submit was pushed. And this is also the trigger for the tag that I wanted to fire. And this is the Google Ads conversion tracking tag. of my contact form. And if we head over to the data layer of this specific event, we can actually see the values. So over here you can see that this is the event name, and over here you see a lot of form details where we can actually see the value of the email address that was put in, and we can actually see the value of the telephone number that was filled in. So this is all perfectly fine put in inside of an array, and this part, most of the time you're not able to do this yourself. So you need a developer to help you out with supplying this code and make this accessible for you. So now I can make sure to create data layer variables inside of my Google Tag Manager account. So I can point Google Tag Manager to the correct data layer variable value that I can then send over with inside of my Google Ads conversion tracking tag. So let's first take a look at the actual hierarchy of this array. So over here you can see that the first value is fields, then comes email, and then comes value. So this should be the actual hierarchy of my data layer variable. So fields dot email dot value, and the same goes for telephone number. So fields, and then this field name. This is a randomized field name since I didn't give it a name, and then value as value again. And every hierarchy you have to make a separation with a dot, and I will show you in a sec how this works inside of GTM. So let's head over to Google Tag Manager. So firstly, we want to head over to variables, and inside of variables we want to head over to user-defined variables, since these are custom. Now we want to create a data layer variable for our email address first. So inside of the variable configuration, we want to make sure to select data layer variable. And over here, we are going to insert the array hierarchy. So where Google Tag Manager can actually find the value of the email variable. So and this was fields.email.value. So sometimes there isn't a hierarchy in place, and it's just a bunch of variables inside of one hierarchy. So event, email, phone number, address. And if there's no hierarchy or no array in place, then you can just use email, for example, or just refer to the actual data layer attribute, data layer variable inside of your data layer itself. But since I have a hierarchy, I need to use an hierarchy by using the dots. So this is the data layer variable of my email address. And I also want to make one for my phone number. Data layer variable. And let's put this one over here. So fields, then the field ID, and then value once again. So now we want to save it up. So now my user-defined variables are saved. Then you can head over to your Google Ads conversion tracking tag that was already set up. Make sure to, if you are using the actual event and you have made enhancements within that specific event, make sure to use that specific event as a trigger, or use a event later than the event where your data layer variables are being sent over, since these need to be accessible within the same page, basically, before you're able to extract them out of the data layer. So I like to incorporate this within the same trigger that I use to trigger my tags, like a purchase event or a form submission event, like you can actually see here. So let's head over to my Google Ads conversion tracking tag. Then we can edit this tag. And over here you can see include user provided data from your website. Then we want to select user provided data variables. We want to create a new one. We're going to name this user provided data. Then we want to edit the variable configuration. Then I like to use the manual configuration, since this way you're 100% sure that you're not making any errors. And over here, you want to use the data layer variable email for email, and then your newly created data layer variable for phone number for phone. So that's basically it. So if you want, you can also send over these other data layer variables, but I do not tend to use any of these, since the email address is the most important variable of all of them. And combined with the phone number, Google has plenty of first-party data in order to match the conversions to their own data set. So that's it. Now we want to save this one. As you can see, it is now linked inside of this advanced feature. And now we can actually save the tag and submit it and publish it. So now it is published. Let's take a look at the actual debugging in order to see if it works. So let's first shut this down and then start it up once again. So let's preview my contact page once again, and let's connect it. Let's double check first if the tech assistant is actually connected. Yes, it is. And now let's fill in the form once again. Send it over. Now the actual event is getting triggered since the form has been sent over successfully. So let's double check inside of the GTM debugger. Over here you can see the actual form submit event. Over here you can still see inside of the data layer that the value, email value, and the telephone number value is still being sent over correctly. And now if we head over to variables, we can actually see the variables that are being filled, that are standard, built-in, or user generated, like we have just did. So over here you can see the actual DLV email and the DLV phone number variables that we have just created inside of GTM. And as you can see over here, these variables are actually getting filled with the correct values that you can see inside of the data layer. So my variables are working correctly. And now we can head over to the tag, open our contact form, and over here you can actually see, if you open it up, that the enhanced conversion, well, actually the enhanced conversions values are also being sent over. So you can see my email address and my phone number over here. And that basically means that we have successfully set this up. We have successfully debugged our setup, and now everything is working fine and working perfectly like it should.